I do think there is an element of coming in cold, which can hurt a few players, right? Obviously, if you play day one, you play 7 rounds, 6 rounds, you know, how many it takes you to qualify and get over that line. You play all of those, but after that point, you know, you're feeling good, you obviously got some confidence, you may have figured out a bad matchup along the way. If you come into the tournament on the day 2, this is Friday this year, traditionally the Saturday, but you come in on that day 2, there is an element of not being warmed up potentially, and it can catch you off guard. Caught Naoto off guard, and he started the day 0-2. Of course, running it back to 4-2 just so we could feature him on stream. Pretty nice of him.
And if you're on Shohei's end, he did. We've actually shown him on stream multiple times now. Start in day 1, was able to make it through. They're getting his 6 wins yesterday he needed. And then here he is on the stream again against arguably the toughest opponent you can have, because Naoto is the reigning, you know, potentially defending world champion in VGC. In 2019, that was the last world we had. If he can go back-to-back like this, that would be huge.
Back-to-back's not been done in quite some time, and it would be very, very impressive. But Naoto, certainly a trainer that we don't take lightly, you know, someone we definitely look at as a sort of inspiration in a number of these situations. But what I think is super, super cool about this, we're going to start with Naoto's team, is the restricted pair that he won with in 2019 is back. The Lunar Dawn, as some people like to call it, for those too lazy to read out the full names, including myself, is back. The partners have changed up quite significantly, but it's a restricted pair he knows how to take down a tournament with.
And surprisingly, there is no Stack Attacker on the team, as that is what he had in 2019 there. So it could be just a comfort thing. The Lunala Groudon, Naoto decided 2019, that was the play. That was the best restricted pairing, and he's looking to prove in 2022 that that still holds true.
You lied to me. You said he's running back 2019. You didn't say minus everything but the restricted pair.
Minus the, only keeping the good parts.
I think the whole team was good. It won a world championship.
No, but Stack Attack is not good right now in 2022. That's
anyway, before we jump into game, a quick note on Shohei's team. We've seen similar lineups to this. The one thing I think is really interesting here is the double grass type, the Rillaboom and the Whimsicott. Usually they're kind of interchangeable, and you struggle to play both, but that Rillaboom is going to be so important here. The obvious answer to the Kyogre would be, hey, it's Gastrodon, but you've got the Rillaboom in there that can just polish it off with the Grassy Glide.
So now it's time. Swiss round 7, the last round. Winner moves on. Loser has to watch Top Cut with us. Naoto, Mizubuchi on the top of your screen with a Charizard and Groudon lead, and Shohei Kimura with Zacian and Kyogre. So 3 restricteds here on turn 1.
Now, a lot of trainers throwing it out, and we already get to see the weather interaction that is so, so vital for getting that early advantage. Groudon, the slower of the 2, so if Kyogre does get to come in with the rain, we'll potentially outspeed it, but the Groudon being slower means right now it has drought, it has that protection from a Water Spout, from an Origin Pulse. There is, of course, the world that Shohei could reset it. We've seen some players go really aggressive into this matchup, immediately resetting the weather with a weaker Max Geyser, but being able to capitalize off it in the next few turns. You know, there is also a world where the Zacian could pair up with the Kyogre, assuming it's the Charizard taking this Gigantamax here. Then, you know, just Behemoth Blade, Max Geyser could be enough to get that knockout and give you a real large element of control. But before you get to do any of that, you know, this Charizard is going to get to play the game. It is going to be doing a preposterous amount of damage with Solar Power active right now, and that is something you need to make this right decision if you're Naoto to start the game swinging, and here is the Dynamax on the Kyogre.
Yeah, no switches from either trainer on this turn. Instead, they're both going to Dynamax, or in Naoto's case, Gigantamax with his Charizard. Shohei is in a tough spot because Kyogre is going to have his water damage reduced thanks to the drought ability being set by Groudon, and with Solar Power as Charizard's ability is going to do more damage while the sun is up. But a Behemoth Blade from the Zacian will do double damage into Dynamax Pokemon, so that's going to be double. That is hardly restricted since it did half of his HP, and a Max Airstream from the Charizard, just going into the Zacian slot there to do a little bit of damage, but more importantly, get the speed boost. Now, next turn, the Groudon could be faster than the Kyogre.
It could be faster right now.
It's faster right now because of the dynamic speed, making it +1, getting rid of Zacian. So all he got this game out of his restricted was just that half damage there. But with the Max Geyser in the sun, into the Charizard, it's not enough for the knockout. Charizard double target targeted that turn and still hangs on.
I didn't know if it was going to be enough, and this Charizard shows that it is nowhere near being knocked out. I mean, it's low, but it keeps going.
And it's weakness policy, so now he's even stronger.
Oh, he's got to capitalize on this weakness policy, and honestly, the fact he is so fast is going to force Shohei's hand a little bit. Shohei has to bring in a Pokemon that can either fix up the speed very quickly, and he has options to do that, right? In the Whimsicott, in the Thundurus potentially, but it's going to be the Incineroar. The Incineroar can't stop the Charizard this turn.
No, and it probably, usually you would bring Whimsicott as many times if you did bring it as one of your 4 Pokemon. So I'm wondering now that he has shown Incineroar there that he probably does not have the Whimsicott or a way to slow down the Charizard.
Yeah, if that Thundurus isn't one of those prankster Thundurus carrying something like the Thunder Wave, he's not, or the Scary Face in some instances, isn't going to be able to stop the Charizard that way. So you may as well just try and slow down the Groudon for a turn. Of course, you do have control with the Rain for now. Looks like the Groudon just leaving. It's all about Charizard in this turn. And honestly, after the weakness policy, I want to see how much it does while the Rain is up. Here comes the boy.
Charizard taking 1 turn to hang out as he needs to switch Groudon away and then bring it back in to get the Sun back up. So that's why he's for the Max Guard. But Max Strike into that Max Guard because Kyogre and Shohei were expecting the switch in from the Gastrodon. You don't want to waste that and give it a Storm Drain boost.
Very nice heads-up play there, and the Max Strike, of course, would have helped out a little bit with the Max Airstream. What's very noticeable here, though, is that Groudon in this situation, you know, thought about the fake out. The Incineroar coming in and protecting is certainly a curious one. You know, at least you could have done something there. Because if you're the Charizard, you probably have to focus on this Kyogre a little bit. Now you've repositioned, though, as Naoto. Yeah, Solar Power's about to come back. I can imagine the switch right away. You've already shown that you have a way around it. So just bring in this Groudon once again. See if your combination of Solar Power and the Weakness Policy boost is going to be enough to completely tear through something like this Kyogre with maybe a Max Airstream to help the Groudon out in future.
This is a very telegraphed switch in, but there might not be enough for Shohei to stop it.
My goodness.
Look how strong that was with the Sun boost, with the Weakness Policy boost to its special attack there. The G-Max Wildfire being able to knock out the Incineroar, and then the Max Lightning into Charizard obviously is going to be enough to take it out.
That Gastrodon has actually caused so many problems, though, and I respect the Max Lightning or Max Strike would have been pretty fine, too. But what it did was it meant that, you know what, this Kyogre's going to want to stay in, it's going to want to attack. And the big thing here, and what I really like from Naoto, is he goes after that Incineroar, knowing just how much damage he has available to him with the Solar Power, with the Weakness Policy boost. Get rid of it, and now that Kyogre is locked in the sun for the rest of the game, there's also a Gastrodon in the back, and this Groudon's probably in a really good position to try and just close out this game because it's going to have control of the weather. Of course, there are a number of other options that Naoto could bring. Could have that Lunala available in the back to try and tidy this one up, and the Gastrodon just being shown right now. So if he doesn't need to show it off, he won't at this point. The big answer, though, is there for Naoto. I can imagine that we are going to see his 4th Pokemon because Gastrodon Rillaboom is a very one-sided matchup.
But helpfully for Naoto, even though his Gastrodon is terrified of the Rillaboom, what we've seen from Kyogre, the Max Strike, which is usually Hyper Beam, is like a big sign that this is Assault Vest, right? You know its move. And by having Max Strike and Max Lightning, he probably does not have Ice Beam, so while Gastrodon is on the field, he can never go for those water attacks into the Groudon, and he doesn't even have the Ice Beam to hit it super effectively either.
Right, so that Gastrodon is going to be a big problem, and big control here as well, with the Groudon on the field, being able to say, you know what, I can at least hit this Rillaboom at some point with a Fire-type attack in the sun. The Rillaboom playing it safe. I do think that's very, very wise. But the Water Spout, yeah, he's just going to try and do it in the sun. Give that Storm Drain boost over to Gastrodon, which, if it gets the opportunity to attack, is going to be really, really big. But I just don't think this Groudon is getting anywhere near knocked out in the sun, showing that it has a very safe build. But the Heat Crash going into the Rillaboom.
Yeah, the Protect there was crucial for Shohei. He's not able to take any damage. And because the Electric Terrain disappeared when Rillaboom switched in, now Yawn is back on the table. You're going to have a little Wildfire damage there, but at the end of next turn, the Kyogre would be forced to go to sleep after it attacks.
Yeah, that's really, really big. And this actually is a very interesting item choice on the Groudon, the leftovers. Not something I've seen yet, but being able to kind of sit there and recover a little bit with the grassy terrain as well. You know, the Water Spout is definitely about to be off. I think with the amount of damage being taken by this Kyogre, you're going to have to start fishing with our good friend Origin Pulse. But at the end of the turn, you're going to sleep anyway. And that is something that the Gastrodon this turn could potentially just protect itself. Make sure that the Kyogre goes to sleep before you take any more damage. I think that's the big thing, because then you're just 1v1ing that, or 2v1ing the Rillaboom essentially for at least a turn.
And Naoto is forced to protect on the Gastrodon because anytime he does not protect, it's going to get knocked out from the Grassy Glide. So as you were saying, Adam, Origin Pulse is going to miss onto both of these because they have protected, and Kyogre has to go to sleep.
Yeah, Kyogre's going to sleep, and it's still getting burned. Of course, there's a little bit of recovery, so it's not as impactful, but it is certainly starting to add up on this one. It's causing problems. Obviously, the leftovers recovery, making that Groudon look really, really healthy. And that Groudon's already almost back to full health. And this Rillaboom, yeah, it's getting a bit back, but it's just not looking the best. Now, the Kyogre going to sleep, I think, means you could potentially take the Gastrodon out for a moment and then bring something in that can capitalize.
That's right, because he still, Naoto has the Pokemon advantage. That's what he was working towards earlier on by switching his Groudon out early and then bringing it back. He wanted to keep that weather advantage and the Pokemon advantage. So Naoto still hasn't even revealed his fourth Pokemon.
Yeah, I don't know if he wants to reveal it. Obviously, the Gastrodon's in a really tough position. The Grassy Glide goes into the Groudon. It's not enough.
Instead of the Gastrodon, everybody thought the Gastrodon would be targeted there, but Groudon actually hangs on. Heat Crash in the sun into the Rillaboom, and that takes it out. That was a very gutsy play out of Shohei, and it almost worked.
Yeah, I mean, he knew that the Gastrodon wasn't going to be a massive concern, but, you know, being able to say, well, you're probably protecting, I'll get the damage down on the Groudon, absolutely huge, but the Groudon very correctly just punishing him in return, saying, fine, Grassy Glide me all day. I've recovered so much and not been burned constantly between turns. I've got leftovers. You've given me grassy terrain. Actually, your Grassy Glide isn't going to be able to knock me out. So all of that recovery didn't even look close. 63 health at the end of the turn. Feeling really good. And at the end of the day, yes, there's only one more turn of Harsh Sunlight. But the big question is, what are you going to do to Gastrodon?
But, well, so that's what I'm saying. Either way, even if you get the knockout on Groudon, the Gastrodon, Kyogre still can't touch it. No. You're gonna Hyper Beam and take a turn or every other turn of just sitting there, and eventually the Gastrodon will be able to take you down, can put you back to sleep and everything like that. So Naoto is just playing incredibly well right now.
This game is completely locked. There is no consistent way to get this Gastrodon. I mean, obviously a Hyper Beam would hurt a lot, but this Gastrodon feeling really good, and it's even better when you've got this Pokemon in Kyogre asleep. Kyogre does wake up, and it goes for it. The Origin Pulse is just going to give more boosts over to this Gastrodon.
And the Kyogre's already such low health anyway that any boost is going to help Gastrodon take it out. This Origin Pulse does connect onto both of the Pokemon, though. Hitting into the Groudon does take it out. Finally, Naoto is going to have his last two Pokemon, but he might not even have to reveal that fourth Pokemon thanks to the Storm Drain boost from this Gastrodon in the Earth Power, and it is knocked out, and Naoto Mizubuchi is going to win Game 1 here in Round 7. He is one win away from making Top Cut and potentially defending his title.
He's one win away from going 5-2 from an 0-2 start, too.